What is up? Welcome to the first episode of WireTapped for the 2025 season. We are already on to week 2, and it was a pretty damn good week for fantasy football in week 1, but I'm guessing your teams might need some work, and that's what the waiver wire is all about. Let's get into it. Welcome to WireTapped, the first episode of the 2025 season. This is Club Fantasy's weekly waiver wire show. I know you love that alliteration. I'm your host, Ryan Weiss. With me, as always, Josh Hudson. Josh, it was a fun week 1.
Yeah, it definitely was. A lot of really good games. The Monday night stinker that started to be a stinker actually had a pretty decent ending. So, kudos if you stuck with JJ McCarthy.
I didn't. But yeah, if people were ready to bury JJ McCarthy at halftime, and the fourth quarter obviously may have changed some opinions there. We'll see how that goes. Before we get into today's waivers, I'm going to give you guys a couple of quick reminders. Subscribe, do all the things you can do to help us be successful on YouTube. We are past 1,600 subscribers, working our way towards 2,000 by the Super Bowl, and you can be a part of that. If you have waiver questions, drop them in the comments. If you have questions about the players we picked, drop it in the comments. Dropping comments helps, and we're going to answer all of your questions. And if you have a question that you feel like we're taking a little bit too long to answer, we do things for money. And there is super chat available to you guys to jump the line if you want. We also have a partnership with Trophy Smack that I'm going to let Josh cover before we start to get into some of the NFL news and notes.
Absolutely. Fantasy football season is here, and Trophy Smack is where you want to get all of your rewards. They have trophies, rings, and championship belts, all designed to tell your league mates who the real champion is. And don't forget to show some love to your commissioner for the thankless jobs that they have. So hit the link in the description of this podcast and check out some of the swag that you can get for your commish, and let them know they are at least the second most important person in the league behind you. It's all available at trophysmack.com/club fantasy.
There you go. We also have a Discord, completely free Discord. If you guys are looking to keep your fantasy football discussions going for all day long, we are live streaming the games. We're putting our DFS picks in there. Gator dropped his underdog picks yesterday, and I dropped an article to go with that. We also have our waiver picks out there for you folks. So if you guys are looking to get my article early, it's going to be in the Discord before it's anywhere else. Josh, let's start this thing off with NFL news and notes. There was a trade late last night that actually changed the waiver landscape. The Jacksonville Jaguars have traded Tank Bigsby to your Philadelphia Eagles for a 5 and a 6, which certainly cleans up the Jacksonville running back room. Eagles said they traded for him for his kick returning skills. So we'll talk about that.
That just buries him even more on the Eagles depth chart. I initially was thinking that the Will Shipley rib injury may have been a little bit more serious than anticipated, but with the kick return news also makes sense because Shipley was returning kicks, but they do value him as a backup running back to Saquon. But ultimately, I think what this does is A.J. Dillon is now the 4th best running back on this team.
Yeah, and likely to be released, I would guess.
Yeah. Maybe not released, but he's definitely depth. So.
Yeah. George Kittle looking like he's going to be out multiple weeks. I anticipate we're going to get a bunch of tight end questions today because that is the biggest injury from week 1. But if you're the San Francisco 49ers, it gets worse. Jawan Jennings, we mentioned yesterday, was also dealing with an injury, but it also came out that Brock Purdy is dealing with shoulder and toe injuries. The toe is the more significant of the two, and it could actually force him to miss week 2. Things not looking good for the 49ers and the Chiefs.
Mac Jones season.
Hey, it could have been the pick all those years ago with Trey Lance. And the Chiefs are taking it day by day with Xavier Worthy with the dislocated shoulder. Most injury experts in our own Josh Hudson, who has dealt with separated shoulders, said this is going to be a multi-week injury. But then to make things worse, I guess, if he does not get surgery, which is what it would keep it as a shorter injury, there's a higher risk of re-injury. So Josh, do you have any quick thoughts on the news right now?
So I'll touch on the Worthy thing because I did mention this yesterday and didn't really get to talk too much about it. Yes, I have dislocated my shoulder 10 times. I first dislocated it playing football, again playing baseball, done it playing softball, a lot of different sports. Also some very drunken party nights in college. So there's all different ways that you can dislocate a shoulder when you're as clumsy as I am. So there's that aspect. Second, this is not a fun injury because once you've dislocated your shoulder once, it basically is loose for the rest of your life, no matter how much.
It happened to my college roommate.
And really what this boils down to is you either let it rest and heal for an extended period of time. That could be 3 to 6 weeks. That could be 6 to 8 weeks. Surgery obviously can tighten things up if there's a rotator cuff or labrum tear or any of those more significant things that tend to happen with dislocated shoulders. He is likely going to miss an extended time. Or if he does come back, he risks major re-injury a lot sooner than possible.
Yeah.
Because even playing with a brace to hold that in place, when guys are going as fast as they're going, as weighing and as strong as they are, there's a lot of risk here when it comes to Xavier Worthy.
There you go. We do have some audience questions. I'm actually going to take those now. I'm going to let you guys know we're going to cover a lot of these players later on in the show. In fact, I think all of them later on in the show, but I'm not going to make you wait 20, 35 minutes to get your question answered. So Josh, let's kick this show off with Tyler Speary. Obviously has a tight end problem. I'm guessing this is a George Kittle manager. We got Brenton Strange, Juwan Johnson, or Zach Ertz. Of those three, which one are you starting?
Johnson and Ertz, I don't love their matchups this week. Strange was a lot more involved than I thought he might be.
Yeah.
I think I would lean him this way. I'm trying to remember who the Jags play.
When you look at the target trees of these teams, I think Strange has the best chance to keep his role. Ertz wasn't bad, but you add Deebo Samuel. Juwan Johnson, it's more of a question of the entire team. It's not a question of...
Yeah, Ertz gets the Packers, though. I want nothing to do against
I got to avoid the Packers right now.
I mean, Jaguars get the Bengals. Bengals defense is trash.
Yeah.
Saints get the 49ers.
Harold Fannin just had a great day against the Bengals.
I think I would lean Strange here for this week.
Yep, I would too. And he's probably going to be the cheapest. I think Juwan Johnson is likely to be the most expensive tight end acquisition this week. Chris Sherman, new name. Don't remember you seeing you. Thank you. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Is it better to trade for Keenan Allen or grab Quentin Johnston off the waiver wire? Josh, for me, it's Johnston. I understand Allen had a good game, but that game was kind of like buoyed by a touchdown. I fully believe Johnston's role as the lone deep threat of this offense is one that's going to pay dividends this year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people panicked when they went out and they got Keenan Allen. Really, it's all three of them. It's McConkey, it's Allen, it's Johnson. This offense is running through them. They don't really have a viable tight end that is going to really shine through this offense. We all knew, and we talked about this here at Club Fantasy all offseason, Greg Roman doesn't throw to running backs. They're going to throw to the wide receiver position. All three of these guys are going to have a role. They're going to have a high target share. You're talking anywhere from 7 to 12 targets in a given game for any three of them.
Yeah.
Johnston seems to be their red zone guy. He's the guy scoring touchdowns. Like you said, he's also the deep threat that is moving and pushing this offense down the field. He's going to come a lot cheaper than Keenan Allen, right? If you're talking about needing to trade for Keenan Allen versus either just dropping some of the low end guy on your roster or, spending 30% of your fab budget, I'd much rather spend the 30% fab to get Quentin Johnston than trade for Keenan Allen.
The only thing is, unless they'll trade you Keenan Allen straight up for the guy you were going to drop for Quentin Johnston. I don't normally let people cut the line, Josh, but when my nephew chimes in before he goes to work, he gets to cut the line. What's up, Caleb? He suffered through the Worthy injury, Josh, but thankfully has Emeka Egbuka. Do we think that role is going to stay consistent? I absolutely think it does. I am so high on Emeka Egbuka now.
Dude, came out and scored 2 touchdowns in his first game.
Yep.
He's not getting sat. When Chris Godwin comes back, somebody's going to get hurt. Egbuka's going to stay in the starting lineup. Really, the guy this hurts more than anything when everybody gets healthy, it's Sterling Shepard. It's Jalen McMillan. Those are the guys that are going to fall further down the totem pole.
And we talked about this before.
They spent a first-round pick on Egbuka. They paid Chris Godwin. They paid Mike Evans. That's where the target threes go.
And K-Dot. Not that he did a lot this week, but we always say K-Dot is only good when someone's hurt. Well, guess what? When they have Egbuka and Mike Evans, that hurts K-Dot in the long run for those who are looking for a tight end right now. Jonathan Santiago, is Ollie Gordon worth a hold, Josh? I think this is almost a two-formed question because my immediate answer when I saw this was, yeah, Ollie Gordon's still worth a hold. But if these three guys are out there, specifically Dylan Sampson, I think I'm ready to move on from Ollie Gordon for Dylan Sampson.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the only piece of that Dolphins offense that I want for, the next month, just to see if they can work out the kinks, is Devon Achane. That's it. There's nothing going right now. I mean, they couldn't muster anything against Indy, and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Sampson, the numbers and the splits were really interesting because Jerome Ford operated as the lead back, had more carries, had more time, like snap share, ran way more routes, had 11 more routes run than Sampson, yet had 1 target to Sampson's 8, which is a crazy percentage when you look at it. Coleman actually ran the most routes among the top 3 wide receivers for the Bills. And I've got some notes on Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah.
I would rather have all 3 of these guys over Gordon right now. So to me, it really just kind of depends on, do you feel you need running back depth? Go get Sampson. I would prefer, right now, I think the edge would be to Coleman over Boutte, but I think Boutte might end up being the more consistent of the two. But again, I always feel like RB depth needs to be at a more premium than wide receiver depth, because I'm guessing you probably have studs at wide receiver.
There you go. Santiago goes back-to-back Superflex League. Should he drop Danger Russ for Danny Dimes, Aaron Rodgers, or Jackson Dart? First of all, I hate dropping quarterbacks in Superflex Leagues, but Josh, there is no way Aaron Rodgers is going to be available in any Superflex League that I'm a part of.
Yeah, I don't know how many teams this is, but if Aaron Rodgers is available, I'm guessing it's probably like an 8 or a 10 team league. Because if Rodgers is available in a 12 or 14, holy crap, somebody's not playing Superflex right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think right now I would probably prioritize them, Rodgers, Dimes, and then Dart.
100%. Would you drop Russell for all 3? I guess Dart being the
I would. In all honesty, yeah. I mean, look, the way that the Giants offense looked, their schedule is not getting any easier over the first month and a half of the season.
Yeah.
And we talked about this all off season. Dart is likely going to be the starting quarterback as soon as week 8, if not sooner, the way that this offense looked. So I would be fine depending on who your I'm guessing Russ was probably your QB3. So depending on what your top 2 look like, I would be okay going to get Dart. If you can somehow weather the storm, if you don't have any early bye weeks at quarterback, I'd be okay stashing Dart, because I think he's ultimately going to end up being more valuable the back half of the season than both Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers.
There we go. Well, folks, you're here for waivers, and we are here to talk waivers. As I mentioned before, there is an article that goes out on our website just before this show every single week. That is going to be my top 5 waiver picks. These are the guys that I would be prioritizing regardless of kind of what the league is, except for maybe Superflex, because I will say, and I said this in the intro of my article, I rarely cover quarterbacks and tight ends in this article, because I think you can still get great options after waivers. So unless someone I think is going to be an every week starter is available, I will rarely cover quarterbacks and tight ends. For number 1, we went with Hollywood Brown. It's the thumbnail of this show. For obvious reasons, we'll talk more about him shortly. After the trade, number 2 for me is Bhayshul Tuten out there in Jacksonville. It is everything opening up in Jacksonville for the running backs there. Number 3 is Quentin Johnston. He was my 2, but like Josh, I prioritize running back, so I have Quentin Johnston at 3. Dylan Sampson is at 4. Hunter Henry, I do believe, especially for folks in the George Kittle conundrum, can be an every week starter. So he made my list as my top 5. So once again, that's Hollywood Brown, Bhayshul Tuten, Quentin Johnston, Dylan Sampson, and Hunter Henry. Josh, he's on the thumbnail. My man had 16 targets in week 1. Talk to me a little bit about Hollywood Brown. And do you think he's a flex player or wide receiver too moving forward?
I think for the next month, I'd say. And it really just kind of, when you look at how this offense shapes up, right? You're down Worthy, you're down Rice for 6 weeks. Well, 5 more now. This is exactly how this Chiefs team started last year when they were hyper targeting Rashee Rice. He had 29 targets the first 3 games, 16 targets for Hollywood Brown this week. That's a 42% target share. Nobody else on the Chiefs team had more than 5 targets. That includes Travis Kelce. You're going against Philadelphia next week. Then you're at the Giants. You're home to Baltimore, at Jacksonville, home to Detroit. These are the next 5 games. There's some good defenses on this team, on this schedule. There's also some mediocre defenses. Philly has a good pass defense. And we saw what Philly did to this team in the Super Bowl last year. So without your top 2 weapons, they're going to have to, once again, force feed Hollywood Brown. We might get an ugly stat line like a 10 for 99, but guess what? In PPR leagues, that's 19.9 fantasy points.
Exactly.
It does not matter. Does not matter. If he can sneak in a garbage time touchdown, now you've got a top 3 wide receiver on the week, top 5 wide receiver on the week. This is a guy that absolutely has to be rostered in fantasy football, no matter how deep or shallow your league is.
Yeah, he becomes a dead commodity in week 7, but for the next 5 weeks, he's going to win you must roster. And Josh, you hit it. I literally wrote, he is a PPR darling for the next month. That is exactly how I wrote it out in my article. So I think we can agree there. We do have some tight end questions in the chat. I'm going to actually get those up when we get to the end of this segment here. So give me just a moment on that. Josh, let's talk just a little bit about Tuten, because Travis, wrong Etienne. Travis Etienne kind of took over that backfield. And now we're looking at a situation where Tank Bigsby didn't do much. Obviously, he's no longer on the team, but Tuten did almost nothing. Should we at least early on expect this to be Travis Etienne and Travis Etienne only? I still think Tuten needs to be added, but it certainly seems to be the Travis Etienne show right now.
Yeah, I mean, for the same reason you were adding Tank Bigsby, you need to add Bhayshul Tuten. That's really what this boils down to. But the way that the backfield really shook out, Tuten had some carries. They mixed them in. That's great. But when it came to passing downs, it was all Etienne with LeQuint Allen sprinkled in, right? Yes. And we'll talk about Allen a little bit later. So, Tuten is going to be that rotational piece as a runner, right? That was the role that Tank Bigsby played in week 1. So for right now, that's what you're looking at. A guy that can maybe get you carries. Maybe he falls into the end zone because that's going to be the rotation that Jacksonville uses. But you're rostering him in the sense that he is the handcuff to Travis Etienne, plain and simple.
Yep. And the only thing I added to that was with his speed, he doesn't need a ton of volume. He's a score from anywhere on the field kind of guy.
Look at him the same way right now that you would be looking at Trey Benson.
There you go. Exactly. Who also appears on this list a little bit later on. Josh, I'm going to move on from the top 5 section. So we're going to move into audience questions, but that is also because Hunter Henry is in my top 5, and he is a guy I think could be an every week starter. I do want to throw Joe Ortiz up. He is our only question right now. Does he stick with Jake Ferguson with Kittle down, but he can also get Harold Fannin or Hunter Henry? And obviously, Josh, I went with Hunter Henry over Fannin. And the reason I did so, actually, let me leave that question up so people know what we're talking about. The reason I went Henry over Fannin is the role in the offense. I understand Fannin balled out in week 1, but you cannot convince me Fannin is all of a sudden ahead of David Njoku. Nobody is ahead of Hunter Henry. To me, those 8 targets are super safe, 4 catches for 66 yards. But Josh, I'm going to ask you a quick question because I found this interesting. I was kind of down on Henry that he didn't score a touchdown. How many tight ends do you think scored touchdowns in week 1? Josh, did you look it up?
Oh, good question. Let's see. Oh, shit. Probably like 4.
10, actually.
Okay.
But some weird names with Jake Tongas finding the end zone, Hunter Long finding the end zone, Davis Allen finding the end zone. So maybe
I know Tucker Kraft scored.
Tucker Kraft did score, made me look like an idiot because I was down on Tucker Kraft. But Josh, I'm just going to ask you for Joe Ortiz here. If you're assuming he gets to keep Ferguson, well, I guess let's rank the 3 of them. Ferguson, Hunter Henry, Harold Fannin as your George Kittle replacement.
Henry, Ferguson, Fannin. That's how I would rank the 3.
That's exactly how
I want the volume. So give me Hunter Henry. Ferguson obviously is just in a better offense. I want to be a little patient with Fannin. He led the team in targets this week, which is great. But I'm still very much of the opinion that I don't think that this offense is going to be pass first the way that it was in week 1. Like Flacco threw 45 times. Okay, cool. Like we know he's very much capable of doing that. A 40-year-old quarterback is not going to average 40 pass attempts per game, plain and simple.
Yeah.
This offense is going to run a lot of 12 personnel. Fannin and Njoku are going to be on the field at the same time quite often. But that's also going to leave Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman on the field at the same time. Those two, the 2 wide receivers, were the ones that led this team in routes run.
And then you throw Dylan
runs
Sampson
through. Yep. And then Dylan Sampson chiming in, right? So like there's going to be opportunities here, but much like how everybody jumped on Isaiah Likely last year after busting out and saying, the takeover is coming. Mark Andrews is left for dead. What happened? Likely wasn't much of a factor the rest of the season. I think he only had one other startable fantasy week. Let's not get too over anxious with Fannin yet. David Njoku is still there. He's still a very viable option and isn't someone like Mark Andrews who simply relies on scoring touchdowns to be viable, right? Fannin will have a place. He's going to have some good weeks. I don't know that I'm ready to jump on, every week starter. Ferguson is a key piece in this passing offense. We saw how lackadaisical George Pickens was in week 1. That is the George Pickens MO. If that continues, Dak Prescott's not going to be looking his way. He's going to be looking at the guys he trusts. That's CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson.
Yep. But we do have Hunter Henry over Ferguson. Joe, I saw you said you would have to drop Ferguson. We would drop Ferguson.
It's Hunter Henry, no doubt. He tied for the team lead in targets, 17.8% with Kayshon Boutte. He's the guy that needs to be rostered straight up. He's a top 12 fantasy tight end.
I'm going to quickly, Chris, I see your question. I'm going to get you in next segment. I'm going to quickly throw Carlos up here. Literally, you came in 4 seconds late. Literally what we just covered. We love Hunter Henry. If you rewind 30 seconds into the podcast, you're going to see exactly why. But Hunter Henry is the answer to your question, Carlos. Chris, I'm going to get you after the next segment. Guys, we have created a new segment for WireTapped this season. Inspired by our mock drafts, we found out that quite a bit of our viewing audience still plays in smaller leagues. And I'm talking 8-team leagues. And for years, our show and many shows have neglected those teams. We are adding waiting in the kiddie pool for 8-team leagues. These are folks that are available in some smaller leagues. And I'm going to let Josh let you know how he figured this out. But who are available in some smaller leagues that are probably not available in your 10, 12, and certainly bigger leagues. But we're going to cover you guys too. But Josh, talk people through this new segment.
Yeah, so based on the mock drafts and the explosion of our 18 mocks, I decided to actually create an 8-team Club Fantasy League. I call it our Club Fantasy Research League. So I got 7 others from the team, and we went through and created a league and drafted, and we make waiver claims just like we run it just like a league, right? So basically, I used our waiver wire in this league to create this type of list because you're only starting 8 quarterbacks. You're only starting, 16 running backs, potentially slightly more than that. So there's going to be options on the waiver wire, and there's going to be options that probably wouldn't be on a 10, 12, or definitely not even a 14-team waiver wire. But these are guys that I found that I think that if you need to drop somebody that's struggling to pick up for 1 week or maybe a short little stretch, these are the guys that you want to target. So I'll start at quarterback. I grab Dak Prescott, Justin Fields. Prescott going against the Giants. Look, the Giants defense is good. I like it, but they're not going to handle the passing volume that Dak can put forward. We saw what Justin Fields was able to do against Pittsburgh, against Buffalo this week. Buffalo just gave up a ton to that Ravens rush first offense, and that's exactly what the Jets are going to provide. Justin Fields should be a top 6 quarterback here heading into week 2. Javonte Williams against the Giants as well. Williams came out, scored 2 touchdowns against the Eagles. I like it.
Yeah.
Not going to knock it. Starting running back should be rostered in 8-team leagues, guys. Let's put that here for everybody to know. The wide receiver position, Keenan Allen against Vegas, Jaden Reed against Washington. Jaden Reed, maybe the foot was overreacting. I don't know. Gets a short week, so maybe not the best play, but I think Reed should be rostered, even though nobody on that Packers team saw more than 5 targets in week 1. Keenan Allen, simply a volume play. Vegas, you can throw on them. The defense is okay. It's not anything great, but the Chargers are going to come out slinging, and I'm all about it. So make sure that Keenan Allen is definitely rostered in 8-team formats.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, Josh, when you look at this, a lot of the guys that you mentioned are guys that I'm seeing available in a lot of even bigger leagues. But in bigger leagues, you're going to see them get scooped up. Whereas when you're looking at these 8-team leagues, these are guys that people might ignore a little bit, but you're pointing them out because the matchup is so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really what I want to focus on with 8-team, because you're always going to have good players on waivers.
Yeah.
So it's okay to treat even positions like running back or wide receiver like we would quarterback and tight end.
Play the
stream.
matchups.
It's okay. Play the matchups, because there's going to be good matchups on waivers the next week.
Yeah. I think it's such a great point. And looking at those quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, obviously they both get it done different ways, but Justin Fields strikes me as a guy, Josh, who can set you apart in an 8-team league because of that rushing upside. Especially a lot of 8-team leagues also happen to be 4-touchdown leagues, 4-point touchdown leagues. And the 6 points they get from a rushing touchdown elevates them in a league like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all over Fields if I didn't already have Lamar Jackson. So.
Yeah, exactly. And Josh, let's wrap this up. I don't think you got to dig much into Jonnu Smith, even though you have him highlighted.
Yeah, so Jonnu's interesting. The running narrative with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers at quarterback was Rodgers doesn't throw to the tight end. Well,
yeah,
Jonnu Smith, they traded for him. Arthur Smith loves his 12 and 13 personnel. That's going to be a lot of jumbo packages, a lot of tight ends on the football field. So what do they do in week 1? They target the tight end position 31% of the time. Jonnu Smith came in with a 20.7% target share. And he gets Seattle. George Kittle scored a touchdown against them.
There's Jake going to be plenty of scored a touchdown against them.
Yeah, there's going to be opportunity for the tight ends to do well, not only in this Pittsburgh offense, but also heading into this week against Seattle.
There you go. I'll remind you guys, if you like what you're hearing here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions, we are answering them all show long. And if you drop them in after the show, we'll do our best to get them answered before tonight. I'll also remind you that we do have that partnership with Trophy Smack going on right now. If you check the link in the description of this video, it'll get you over to our link with Trophy Smack. That is trophysmack.com/Club Fantasy. It is promo code club, or no, it's actually not promo codes this year, right, Josh?
No. So, yeah, yep. It's trophysmack.com/Club Fantasy. It's our unique link. That's essentially how they're able to track, where you're hearing all the information from. So show some love to your commissioner, show some love to yourself for, predicting that you're going to win the league because you're listening to us and we're going to help you get there. So trophysmack.com/Club Fantasy.
If you want guarantee that your questions are going to get answered, join the Discord also in the description of this video. Josh, we have one question that came in just before the end of the last segment. One that is close to your heart. Is Devonta Smith going to rebound or should we bench him until proven otherwise? I obviously, Josh, aired out my grievances with the Philadelphia Eagles offense yesterday that they were taking what was given to them, but you say that's an overreaction because eventually it's going to be the wide receivers that are given to them.
Yeah, that's the beauty of and the curse really of the Eagles offense is that they're so good about just taking what the defense gives you. There's going to be plenty of space for the wide receivers to operate. I saw an interesting stat. AJ Brown had a 5% target share in week 1. That is the lowest he's ever had in a single game in his career since 2023. It just wasn't a good week 1 for the Philadelphia Eagles.
I said he was doing cardio because they put him in motion.
Basically what he was doing. Yeah. Devonta Smith is a lot healthier than AJ Brown. So I fully expect Devonta to bounce back this week against the Chiefs. The Chiefs have an interesting defense. They know what's ultimately going to happen. They're going to lean on Saquon Barkley. The Eagles will. They're going to line up to stop him. They have a really good run defense. So if that's the case and they're going to line up to stop Saquon, what's going to happen? You got to target somewhere else. I don't really buy into the fact that the Chiefs corners are all that great. So I think this is a week where Devonta Smith can absolutely bounce back. That said, if you'd like to bench him, I'm okay with it, depending on your options, because, really the passing attack as a whole, it's hit or miss. Some weeks it's going to pop, some weeks it's not because they're going to lean on the run. Devonta Smith scored on him in the Super Bowl. Wouldn't be surprised if he scores on him again.
Yeah, Chris, and we thank you for the sub that you mentioned earlier in the show. That obviously means you're also new here. We go live 5 days a week. We do shows 6 days a week. We have multiple shows. We have another show coming up tonight. We really start to focus more on start-sit questions tomorrow, and then we have an entire start-sit show on Saturday mornings as well. So I'm not saying we're not answering this for you. I'm just saying as the week goes on, we get better information, and we'll be able to give you a little bit better answer tomorrow night and certainly on Saturday. But hopefully we got that one answered for you. Josh, Jonathan Santiago is in a 10-team league. He's looking at wide receiver Quentin Johnston, Calvin Austin, Wan'Dale Robinson, but he throws out. His league has insane PPR points and gives points for first downs. Josh, he's already going to be mentioned later on in the show, but I think this opens it up for my dreamboat, Wan'Dale Robinson, the man who just catches everything thrown his way.
Shit, I feel like that both Wandale and Calvin Austin can be viable here. Not to say that Quentin Johnston can't be, right? Like,
but in that scoring format,
in this scoring, first downs, receptions, like this feels right up the alley of Wandale as well as Calvin Austin, which we'll touch on Austin a little bit later. But when you look at Wandale Robinson, 61% of the Giants' targets went to the wide receiver position, specifically Wandale and Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
That's a large chunk of the target share going to those top two guys. Wandale, they're not using as a downfield threat. He is a chain mover. He gets first downs. He gets a ton of receptions. I think when you're looking at this type of setting in a 10 team, Wandale Robinson's got to be your guy.
Yeah, Josh, I was a little mad I couldn't get Wandale into my article, but I forgot how the show sheet was working this year. So I was like, oh, I still get to talk about him on the show. So I'm happy. I felt putting Wandale in the first week article was going to be a little bit much. That's the good, guys, but we also need to talk about the bad. And this list will get larger as the season moves on. But for this week, for our Mayday section, these are the players that you drafted, but it's okay to admit you were wrong. I made the list 5 deep. I'm going to give the list and let Josh give his opinion on whether or not these guys are droppable. So I started with quarterback. I only found one that I only look at folks who are rostered in more than 50% of leagues. CJ Stroud. I'll give my opinion when we talk about him. Jerome Ford at running back, Tank Bigsby at running back, Xavier Legette at wide receiver. And then Josh, I debated putting no tight end. But after we talk about Stroud, I think we need to have a discussion about whether or not Mark Andrews is droppable. Let's start with CJ Stroud, though, Josh. And my opinion here is that there are too many good quarterbacks to ride with a guy who keeps giving you mediocre and bad.
Yeah, I think the thing with Stroud, really, you only drafted him to be a starter in either a super flex or a 14-team league. So if you're in, let's say, 8, 10-team leagues, I'm fine dropping Stroud. He's not going to have as much value. 12-team, I would be okay hanging on to him as a backup. And, of course, anything really later than that. So to me, it really just kind of depends on league size when it comes to Stroud. But in terms of what you're talking about, we talked about this on Wednesday. Stroud was going to have a not great game, plain and simple. It's the first live game in a brand new system. He was down one of his top wide receiving options. He's down his starting running back. He's facing a defense that knows this offense inside and out.
And with an excellent front seven.
This game set up for bad CJ Stroud, plain and simple. So I'm not ready to bail on Stroud yet. The concerning part really is that with no viable number 2 option, defenses can just blanket Nico Collins. So Stroud has to get creative. He has to build trust and rapport with the young guys, with the rookies, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, however you want to pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
He's got to have some trust in Xavier Hutchinson. Like, there's got to be some options there. They lost their backup tight end, Cade Stover, suffered an injury. Dalton Schultz, the always reliable Dalton Schultz, a few drops here and there. Like, there's some issues with this offense. So it's okay to be cautious when looking at CJ Stroud, but I'm not panicking yet.
Josh, are you going to push back on any of my 3 middle guys here? Jerome Ford, I just said the rookies are taking over. Tank Bigsby is relegated now to a return yards role, so unless you're in a crazy return yards like Scott Fishbowl was last year. And then Xavier Legette, obviously this is me beating a dead horse. I am down on the Carolina offense. I am certainly not starting or keeping the second wide receiver in a bad offense.
Kind of the same thing with Stroud. When it comes to Legette, smaller leagues, I'm okay dropping him. 12, 14 team, I'm hanging on to him. I'm not panicking yet on that Panthers offense, but I'm cautious. I'm keeping an eye on it, basically. I'm fine dropping Ford Bigsby. Ford, I would probably hang on to at least until Judkins officially comes back.
Okay.
But yeah, Bigsby's value, I think, is pretty much tanked. And Andrews, really the same thing with Stroud. Okay,
that's what I was going to ask. So Mark Andrews, because we got a question about it yesterday, so I don't feel like it's an overreaction question. 1 catch for 5 yards, but it's, again, Josh, in a 8. I think even in a 10, I'm not ready to drop Andrews. I'll drop him in an 8, but 10 and higher, I'm probably holding.
Well, but I just look at it as game script, right? Like, they were completely blowing out Buffalo for the vast majority of this game, and they were doing it on the ground, right? Like, yes, we saw Zay Flowers and his massive target share, which is great. Good for him. But everybody else was really mediocre, right? Like they just didn't need to throw. Lamar Jackson threw the ball 19 times. That's it. They ran the football. That's how they beat Buffalo. So Mark Andrews just wasn't going to play a factor in this. Like, to me, Andrews is just more of a matchup tight end, which was always the case because he needed to score touchdowns to maintain the value. He's going to score touchdowns as the season goes on. So I'm not panicking yet.
Yeah, better days ahead for Mark Andrews. Josh, we got one listener question as we start to move on to the final segments of the waivers in this show. 14-team league, does he drop Adam Thielen for Quentin Johnson? I think this is as quickly as possible for me.
Smash. I go grab Quentin Johnston. He's much more viable in a more, I don't want to say pass happy, but a more pass-friendly offense, we'll call it, which I never thought I would say about a Greg Roman-led offense.
Yeah, ain't that funny? Millie just chime in. It's JJ versus Penix on Sunday night. National championship rematch from a few years ago, and it's his chance to prove that Penix is better. It's funny, Josh, because in our quarterback episode, I said we should be talking about these players more similarly. So
no, 100%. JJ showed some wheels, and Penix showed some rushing upside too, getting himself a rushing touchdown. I think the biggest thing is really going to be, is Drake London healthy? If Drake London does not play, this game gets really interesting for Penix and would make me worry a little bit about the Atlanta offense.
Josh, we call this section Morse code. These are the cheat codes. And I'm going to tell you guys how we did this section. I broke down the guys that every other podcast is about to talk about. We're going to tell you to probably go ahead and sign some of these guys, but there are other players that we're maybe not so sure on. Josh, let's start with the quarterbacks. When I look this over, obviously I am someone who doesn't want to spend a lot of waiver wire or fab priority on quarterbacks. I listed these three guys as top performers from last week that everybody is going to be talking about: Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones, and Michael Penix. Obviously we have some Penix fans in the audience. Obviously I've said Aaron Rodgers in a lot of like super flex or deeper leagues is a must start. In a 12-team league, Josh, are these guys that need to be rostered?
Yeah, when I'm looking at quarterbacks, it's mainly matchups. I don't like the matchups for any of these three guys this week. Penix is interesting because of what Minnesota allows through the air, but so much of his value, I think, is tied to Drake London. And again, London getting hurt this week, questionable heading into week 2. You take Drake London off of that and his 35% target share, then it becomes, who the hell is Penix throwing to, and are they going to be as reliable as Drake London? So that makes me a little nervous for Penix. I'm keeping an eye on these guys. The only one that I would probably go out and grab for an eye towards future weeks is going to be Daniel Jones, simply because of the rushing upside.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's interesting about so Penix, I think there's a narrative Penix is going to be good. Daniel Jones, let's not forget how bad Miami was for Daniel Jones to be good. Aaron Rodgers, let's not forget the revenge game narrative for Aaron Rodgers to be good. So if you're in a 1 QB deeper league, these might not be guys that you need, or I would say medium league, normal league. These aren't guys you need to rush out and get. Josh, I was a little shocked by the names at running back that are like, that had good weeks last week, because I'm like, I don't know that any of these guys are starters, but I do think they all need to be rostered. I have Trey Benson, Braylon Allen, and Brian Robinson Jr. These guys are all 50% or under rostered on ESPN, and I think all of them need to be on a roster, though I know you weren't so high on Braylon Allen after yesterday.
Not so much high on Braylon Allen. I mean, he scored the 2 touchdowns. He got a decent rushing share. So, or not 2 touchdowns, excuse me, 1 touchdown. Yeah, like Braylon Allen needs to be rostered, plain and simple. Like he's playing the David Montgomery role in this, offset of the Detroit Lions offense in New York. So like he has touchdown upside, maybe not so much like a massive volume play, but in any given week, he's going to have 8 to 12 rushes. And this is a run-first offense. Like, we literally saw it. Like, they're going to run the football. They have 3 viable options in the running game: Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Justin Fields. It's all there. Braylon Allen 1,000% needs to be rostered. The only one I would push back on this list is Brian Robinson Jr. To me, he's strictly a handcuff. And I don't see the value other than that. The way that they're utilizing Christian McCaffrey, they're not going to shy away. If Christian McCaffrey's healthy, they're going to run him, plain and simple.
That's
they're
fair.
They're going to use him in the passing game. So.
That does make him a true handcuff. If they're not going to, if Christian McCaffrey comes in with a calf injury and Brian Robinson still can't go out there and ball, you're definitely right.
And that's the thing. I don't think he has near the juice that Isaac Guerrero does, and Guerrero was in the system last year.
Yeah, so you could see the young kids take that.
I really kind of feel like we're pushing the Brian Robinson Jr. narrative simply because of the name, plain and simple.
I think that's fair. Josh, it's much more plentiful names at wide receiver. Again, we are looking at your standard leagues here, your 10, your 12-team leagues. These are the guys everyone's going to be talking about this week. Cedric Tillman, my guy, Wan'Dale Robinson, Kayshon Boutte out there in New England, Juju Smith-Schuster with the injury we talked about with what made Hollywood Brown interesting. And then Josh Palmer had himself a nice little game Sunday night as well, Josh. I'll let you get us started here with Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah, Boutte is a guy that I'm 1,000% targeting on the waiver wire. Beginning in week 8 last season, so the last 11 games, 8 of those 11, he has had 6 or more targets. He's had back-to-back 100-yard games with Drake May going back to week 18 last year and week 1 this year. And then in 3 of his last 4, he's had 95 or more receiving yards. This is a guy that truly is making a case to be the wide receiver 1 for this Patriots team. Yes, they went out and they got Stephon Diggs. Great, cool. He's on the backside of his career. He's more of a veteran voice in that locker room. And Kayshon Boutte is somebody that truly needs a veteran voice, because you talk about a guy that was a top high school recruit heading into LSU, had some problems there. But after his freshman season, there were a lot of Devy people that were talking about potentially him being a first-round draft pick in the NFL. He ultimately ended up sliding to the 6th round, but talent was never the problem. It was all between the ears.
Yeah. So
the fact that he's been able to hang on heading into season 3 in New England should tell you that he's starting to figure it out. Now, that 3rd-year breakout has been the thing for wide receivers for God knows how long.
Years.
We're starting to see it. If Drake May takes the kind of leap that we want him to take, everybody was all on board Demario Douglas as the big-time slot option in this offense. Maybe we just need to follow the talent, and Kayshon Boutte is the guy in this New England offense.
Yeah, folks, we see all of the questions in the chat. We answer questions after segments. Give us just a few more minutes here. We're going to get to those. But Josh, the 2 players I want to talk about quickly in this wide receiver section, Millie brings up, he's been a Cedric Tillman fan. Tillman was the guy who was removed from my top 5 article, Josh, when Bhayshul Tuten all of a sudden had to be moved into that article. And it broke my heart to move Tillman out. But this Cleveland offense, as you mentioned, goes through the wide receivers it's looking like right now. And it seems Tillman is on the same footing with Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing here is really just, is Flacco going to throw 45 times a game? And I don't think that's really going to be the case. Because again, 40-year-old arms, they're only going to be able to do it for so long.
Yeah, he's going to get hurt.
But what you love is he ran just as many routes as Jerry Jeudy. He was tied for the second most targets at 8 with Jeudy as well as Dylan Sampson. I personally have always been Tillman over Jeudy. I just think he's a better player. I think Judy's massively overrated. Both had drops that really cost his team, but guess who scored the touchdown? It was Tillman over Jeudy. So I think there's plenty of value here. But again, I think he's really just kind of like a spot start when it comes to flex plays. It's not somebody that I really want to trust, because again, like, I'm of the belief that Kevin Stefanski wants to run the football. When Quinshon Judkins gets going, he's going to be a workhorse for this team. They want to be able to control the clock. This game was close enough that Stefanski said, damn, my running backs can't do shit right now. I got to lean on Flacco's arm. And that's what they did. The 2 interceptions that Flacco threw, it sucks. They really weren't his fault. But like you said yesterday, Ryan, Flacco's not opposed to throwing interceptions. Like, that's just kind of what he's going to do. So,
these ones weren't on him, but the next 2 probably will be.
But the next 2 might be. There's definitely value in Tillman. He's not somebody that I'm going to blow a ton of fab on.
Exactly.
Because I just don't believe that this offense is going to be as pass happy as we saw in week 1 for the rest of the season.
Yep. And as we move on to tight ends, I mentioned him earlier in the show. Wan'Dale Robinson in full PPR leagues deserves a spot on your roster. He's never getting you yards, but he is getting you receptions. Josh, I find it interesting that we have a question in the chat that literally mentions the 3 tight ends I'm about to mention, or 3 of the 4.
Do it.
So the tight ends that I found interesting for your regular league are based on what they did last week: Juwan Johnson, Harold Fannin, Jonnu Smith, and Zach Ertz. And Maddie is in a situation. I assume Finney is Fannin, just one of the type to text things that didn't work out. 12-team league, lost Kittle. His options are Juwan Johnson, Harold Fannin, and Jonnu Smith. We spent a little time on this question earlier, Josh, but are we willing to put Jonnu and Fannin ahead of Juwan Johnson as well?
I would probably go Jonnu, Johnson, then Fannin. Okay. Again, really just kind of want to play the wait and see game with Fannin. I think he's an immensely talented tight end. And we've seen how fruitful tight end targets can be in a Stefanski offense through previous seasons. He's still competing with David Njoku for those types of targets. Exactly. So, again, not ready to jump on that yet. Juwan Johnson, 26.8% target share in week 1. I think that's fantastic. He was a tight end 1 on the week, just over Brock Bowers. But, again, same thing with Joe Flacco. How many times is Spencer Rattler going to throw? 46 times. Chris Olave left this game for a brief period. Hardly surprising. He's going to leave a lot of games and not play full seasons. So Juwan Johnson could very well have some value here in this offense. But again, it's not like he lit the world on fire. It's not like he had a 20-plus point fantasy week. So, I'm not really jumping on this Juwan Johnson train yet. But again, maybe there's value later. To me, the value lies in Jonnu Smith because outside of DK Metcalf, the rest of the targets are going to tight ends in this Steelers offense. So, and I think he has the best matchup of these 4 here in week 1.
Hold on. I had to throw this up here real quick. I hate this offense, sir. And at no point, Jatavian Sanders should be a drop candidate. 2 catches for 27 yards. That's the only time we should be mentioning him. Millie, he's gone. Fuck him. Josh, we do have some user questions. I'll remind everybody we're going to answer every question on this show. But if you have questions after the show, jump into the Discord. Links in the description of this video. We'll take good care of you. Like, subscribe, do all that. Let's work through some of these questions here, Josh. Maddie, going back to quarterbacks. Has Josh Allen week 7 bye? Joe Flacco plays Miami in week 7, Josh. I am not planning for quarterback buys quite yet. There's going to be someone available. I'm not dedicating a roster spot to Joe Flacco strictly for this.
Yeah, when I know when my roster or my bye week is, so in this case, week 7, I'll start looking at quarterback in week 5 because that's when I'm going to know, all right, within 2 weeks, I can plan a week ahead or 2, whatever it may be. But you're not looking at a week 7 bye in week 2.
We got Rendon. Would we trade away Waddle for Jerry Jeudy? Just got the offer. It's a full PPR league. He already has Devon Achane. Not sure that he wants to start 2 Dolphins every week.
God, I can't believe I'm actually going to say this, but yeah, I would trade Waddle for Jerry Jeudy right now.
It's funny because me and Josh turned on both of these players last year. So you're literally, whatever the opposite of Sophie's choice is, you're forcing Josh to pick one of these kids. and he's going to go with Jeudy.
Terrible.
Yeah, I'm with the same way, mainly because you're absolutely right, Rendon. I'm not starting 2 Dolphins in any way, shape, or form until...
not that I would feel comfortable starting Jeudy on a week-to-week basis, but, it's the lesser of 2 evils at this point. So
yeah. What's up, Craig? Is he going to start Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield? I'm going to assume he means this week, not for the rest of the season. I don't know the matchups off the top of my head yet, Josh. That's usually
Kyler gets the Panthers at home.
Oh, okay.
Who's the other one?
Baker Mayfield.
Bucks play. Where are we at? Bucks play the Texans. Yeah, give me Kyler. Much better matchup.
Yep, I'm going with Kyler in that one as well. Waivers question. Should he get in on the waivers for Quentin Johnston or Keon Coleman right now? He is starting Jerry Jeudy and Drake London. He also has Ridley on his bench. I guess the question for me was, who would you need to drop? Because I'm fine with going. I guess the issue is, Josh, you don't love starting Jerry Jeudy. I imagine you would want to start QJ and Coleman over Jeudy if London misses time, right?
I would rather have Quentin Johnston and Coleman over Jared Jeudy, quite honestly.
Yeah, so make the move, but be cognizant of who you have to drop for that move. Jay Hang, would we trade Brian Thomas Jr. for Bucky Irving or Chase Brown? I'm guessing, yeah. Or Chase Brown if you needed a running back. His current second running back is Javonte Williams. Josh, I've told you this before. I always prefer running backs. I think these guys are all on the same level. I guess for me, it's a question of would I rather have Bucky or Chase Brown? I'm probably going to go Chase Brown, I think. but it's very close. I would make this trade, Josh, even for Brian Thomas Jr.
Well, for me, it's Bucky over Chase Brown.
Okay.
Second, I mean, your second running back is Javonte. I would feel much more comfortable if he was my third. So slotting Chase or Bucky, great as the RB2. But if you're trading BTJ, I'm guessing he's either your wide receiver 1 or your wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
So for me, I really want to know
that with.
I want to know who you're replacing that with. Like, I understand RBs are a little harder to find. I'm somebody that I cycle through RB2s. Like, as long as I have a solid one, I don't feel the need to go out and grab a second, like, stout RB, truthfully. And I know that you and I think a little bit differently on that, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely.
BTJ, better days are ahead. Don't panic because he had one catch.
Yeah, don't panic, Trey. That's for sure. I'll never advise that. And what I will say is, Josh brings up an interesting point. Is the person you're starting now at wide receiver better than Javonte Williams? Because if it's a coin toss, then keep Brian Thomas Jr. for sure.
Absolutely.
Lonely Stoner 401 PPR needs to start 2 of these wide receivers. Stoner, because your question involves Drake London, I'm going to tell you, you're going to get better advice for this tomorrow night and Saturday. Josh, we need to start 2, and I think it's pretty easily with the injury JSN and Flowers right now.
Yeah, I mean, assuming, let's just take the injury into consideration. Let's assume that Drake London doesn't play. For me, it's JSN and Flowers, and I hate even saying that, but JSN, fucking like 60% target share this week. Holy crap. I don't know how you can sit JSN at this point. Flowers, great. If
Flowers,
London
great.
plays,
He was just the wide receiver 1 in fantasy.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, right. If London plays,
well, then I'm probably benching Flowers.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting Flowers here. But again, like this question will work itself out throughout the week. Like, don't set your lineup on a Tuesday morning. Exactly. I'll tell you that.
And then Millie chimes in, is this the week to buy Ashton Genty? He's looking to
There's never a week not to buy Ashton Genty. Let's start there.
But do we think K9 and Pickens is a good starting offer? I don't think it's bad at all.
I don't think it's bad at all. I think right now, if I can move Kenneth Walker for Ashton Genty, I'm going to do it.
100%. And certainly if Pickens is a throw-in.
The splits in week 1 were certainly not the coach speak that we were led to believe in the offseason. I will tell you that. Maybe it's just a slow start. That's fine. San Francisco has notoriously had a good rush defense. Yeah. But when you look at the splits between Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, they were leaning Charbonnet. And that's a little worrisome, especially for someone like myself who bought very heavily into Kenneth Walker. Yeah. And only one of those teams do I have Zach Charbonnet. So,
all right, guys, we are moving into the last segment. If you have questions, get them in now or forever hold your peace. Again, we will answer in the Discord after this, but this will be the last segment of the show. We'll answer questions and then we are out of here. We call this section deep sea diving. As much as we enjoyed the enthusiasm for the 8-team leagues, we saw similar enthusiasm for 14-team leagues. And I took over this section because my home league is a 14-team league. The players I'm about to mention, it's going to be a pretty big list. I'm just going to list them in order. The players I'm about to mention are players that are currently available in my 14-team league. So this is on Sleeper. This is my experience. It's kind of hard to judge what roster percentage means they're available in a 14-team. But in my league, these are the guys who are available. Kenneth Gainwell, Calvin Austin, Kendrick Bourne at wide receiver, who just signed with San Francisco with all their injury issues. Ray McLeod and Casey Washington there in Atlanta. Deontay Thornton and Trey Tucker there in Las Vegas. LaQuint Allen, I don't even have highlighted. We're going to talk about him for a moment. DeAndre Hopkins and Isaac Tesla. Tesla didn't have the greatest game, but he had that really sick catch. I don't even remember if they actually called it in or not, but regardless, it was enough to maybe put him on your radar. I want to quickly mention LaQuint Allen before I get to Calvin Austin, Josh. I was a big LaQuint Allen guy. For those who don't know, I'm a Syracuse fan. I was very sad when he ended up in Jacksonville. But Josh, even with all 4 running backs on roster, LaQuint Allen played passing downs in the first quarter of this last week's game. First quarter play for your 4th string running back is crazy work. He is an excellent receiver. There were rumors they were going to play him at receiver in the preseason. This is someone who you want to keep an eye on. With Tank Bigsby gone, he may actually start to see some run. We're talking deep leagues here. He's an interesting add to me. But Josh, I wanted to talk about Calvin Austin. One thing I didn't get a chance to mention on yesterday's show, Josh, I love how I was the heightest. I was the I don't like short and skinny guys. And now I'm the biggest tout for Wan'Dale Robinson and Calvin Austin, the two guys who made me form that opinion. 6 targets in week 1. He is the clear wide receiver 2, not the second best passing option, as Josh has pointed out. The running backs and tight ends are always going to get theirs in certain weeks. And so it's going to keep Austin at about 6 targets. However, he only had 58 targets last year. 6 targets per game puts him near 100. Last year, he was at 15 yards per catch. In week 1, he was at 17. So even with this higher volume, it's not hurting his efficiency. His big play role is safe in this Aaron Rodgers offense. And now you have a quarterback who can run this Arthur Smith offense. You're seeing safeties having to focus on tight ends and certainly having to focus on DK Metcalf. And Josh, in a one high safety, if Calvin Austin is left open, he's going to get free. He's going to find the end zone. In deep leagues, I think he's a fine flex play, and he is going to be a decent wide receiver too when bye weeks start to roll around.
Yeah, this offense is all about big plays, right? That's what they do at the wide receiver position. They push the ball down the field. We saw it with DK in week 1. We've seen it last year with George Pickens. That's what they do. They target down the field. So Calvin Austin is one of these electric kind of guys that moves down the field. That's why they have him returning punts and kicks, etc. Like, he's a guy that when he gets a hole, it's gone. Yeah. Like, he has that ability. So, maybe the target volume isn't there week in and week out, but he's one of these kind of like home run plays that people love in DFS, that in these 14, 16 team leagues, like, one play is going to make a week and really boost your roster.
Absolutely.
That's what he provides. And I'm all about it. I like it.
And Josh, you threw a couple of other highlights in here that you felt deserved a little bit of time, or one other highlight rather.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to touch on what you were mentioning with LaQuint Allen. Obviously he moves up the depth chart a little bit with Tank Bigsby being traded to Philly, but in the same realms that you're looking at Bhayshul Tuten, you should be looking at LaQuint Allen, because if something were to happen to Travis Etienne and his 80%
Bhayshul Tuten.
Yeah, well, not even just that, but like, if Etienne goes down, Tuten's not becoming that workhorse the way that Etienne is. That work now gets split, right? Yeah. But here's the thing. On passing downs, Travis Etienne had a 25.0 pass block grade per PFF. 25. You know what LaQuint Allen's was? 79.4.
Yep.
So
it does.
They will trust him to block for Trevor Lawrence, which means he's going to be on the field. You don't show your hand by only putting the guy on there to pass block. So he's going to have an opportunity to run routes. He was the only other Jaguars running back to run routes in week 1.
The fact,
so there's passing down value here with LaQuint Allen in PPR leagues. But I do want to touch on DeAndre Hopkins, simply because I think that people are going to see the touchdown and say, oh, I got to go get DeAndre Hopkins.
Back.
He's back. Yeah, no, that's not the case. There were, of all of the Ravens offensive players to run routes, DeAndre Hopkins had the second fewest routes run.
Oh, wow.
And he was only 3 of 3 wide receivers, right? He had the lowest of all 3 wide receivers that ran routes. So, like, don't get so excited about DeAndre Hopkins simply because he scored a touchdown. These are the traps that you fall into when you blow your fab. Don't do it.
Go. The fact that we got to have a segment where we talked about LaQuint Allen on our waiver show just brings a smile to my face. It makes my Tuesday. Josh, let's wrap this up with the last segment of user questions. Guys, we are getting out of here after this. GITG is streaming quarterbacks going into next week. Right now he has Trevor Lawrence. I do not know why I was blanking on that name. Trevor Lawrence. Should he pick up Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, or Daniel Jones over Lawrence as we move into next week? I think I probably have Lawrence ahead of those guys in my early ranking.
Yeah, I think I would have Lawrence too. We mentioned this earlier in the show between Rodgers, Flacco, and Daniel Jones. I don't love really the matchups for either of those 3 this week. I'm fine streaming Lawrence again. You're the stream master, so I would definitely lean on you.
It's Lawrence now. Cincinnati is, Joe Flacco got it done against Cincinnati, and as we mentioned, neither of those picks were on Flacco. I'm going with Lawrence of that bunch. You will hear my streams of the week tomorrow night on No Pun Intended, and the article will drop on Wednesday if you're still looking for more streams there, buddy. Thursday morning. Sorry. Yep, absolutely. Millie Mills. What do we know about Stingley from Houston? Apparently, there was
got banged up with a little bit of a hip injury. I wouldn't worry too much, especially when you're looking at Egbuka, because bigger, taller corner, probably going to be on the bigger, taller wide receiver. Stingley is not afraid to follow. I think they're going to match him up on Mike Evans.
Josh, do we trust a Buffalo Bills double stack Josh Allen with Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman for a second straight week?
If I'm playing DFS, yes. I tend to avoid these in fantasy unless I have better options. I'll do it in a dynasty league because, again, it's dynasty and, really you just want the best talent. But in my, redrafts and things like that, I'm probably looking to trade one of Shakir and Coleman. If I can trade Shakir, I would do it. And just lean on the touchdown upside of Coleman at this point. I do think Shakir will ultimately end up being the higher target of the two of these when the season plays out, but Coleman has that touchdown upside that I just don't think that Shakir has.
Matty Random says that the Saints are signing a second tight end. Should we worry about Jawan Johnson? They have no other tight ends on roster right now. They had to move Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau to the punt. This is just a depth move. I'm not worried about.
Yeah, it's a depth move. I'm not worried about Johnson's targets.
Woods Girl wants to know how we feel about Kayshon Boutte. That was a big part of the earlier part of the show, but Josh, I'm not dropping either of these two receivers for Kayshon Boutte.
No, you're finding someone else to drop to go get Kayshon Boutte. But also, if you have Stephon Diggs, if you end up grabbing Boutte, if you can find a trade target for Stephon Diggs, I would do it in a heartbeat.
I'm a child, but you just said grabbing Boutte, so... Extended Mags, what's up with the Dallas D? Are they a good pickup in week 2? In my initial defense rankings, they fall in at 13. They could certainly move up. They're not someone I'm pressing for. I'm certainly not blowing any waiver priority on the Dallas defense.
Yeah, no. Without Micah Parsons, that defense has a lot to be desired when it comes to a pass rush. So,
yep.
Yeah, I'm not going that far. I mean, it's against the Giants, so it's definitely a good matchup. And for what it's worth, Andrew Thomas was ruled out in week 1. If he misses week 2, that Giants offensive line continues to be dog shit. So even a mediocre pass rush from Dallas can get the job done.
Millie brings up such a good point, Josh. I was actually going to ask you about this. I have first waiver priority in a league. It just kind of happened. I was just given it. And the only player out there for me is Quentin Johnston, and I'm not blowing first waiver on him. I decided I don't need a wide receiver. So I decided I'm not blowing first waiver this week. So I do find that very, very interesting where I'm just not trying to waste waiver priority on a lot of these guys this week.
So here's what I would say. Pay attention to your league settings. And the reason 100%. I say this
first thing I checked
is because some teams will do waivers based on inverse standings, right? Yep. Some leagues will do rolling waivers, right?
Yep.
So if it's a rolling waiver league, 100%, don't waste the first priority if you don't need it, right? If it's inverse standings, it doesn't fucking matter.
Blow it every single week. Josh is
every
100% correct. Unless you think your league is stupid and might drop somebody during the drop period and then save it, because then you get first dibs on the bad drops after that. And last question of the show is from Only Stoner. 12-man PPR league, went wide receiver heavy, has Jamar Chase, JSN, Drake London, Waddle, and Flowers. RBs are Hendo and Kyron Williams. He's looking to trade for another running back. Who should he target right now at running back? Always tough to pick trade targets this early in the season, but with the wide receivers he has, Josh, I think guys like even Breece Hall doesn't have the best reputation coming out of this past week. We talked about maybe going after Ashton Genty, James Cook, Amari and Hampton. Attack one of those guys who kind of had a mediocre week 1, right, Josh?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Breece Hall didn't exactly have a mediocre week 1, but people were so off of him in the preseason, which still baffles me. Like, the usage in week 1, it was great. Everything, like, if that's a touchdown, that's a completely different line. Like, if he gets one of those 3 inside the 10 rush attempts for a touchdown, like, it's a completely different narrative. And everybody's like, well, shit, why did I fade Breece Hall? Well, because you didn't fucking listen to me. So, I'm more than willing to, like, if I can move Flowers and get Breece Hall, I would do that in a heartbeat. 100% I would do that. Like, I want to hang on to Jamar Chase. JSN, I think, is at this point, it would be hard to say that he's not going to be a PPR darling, right? Drake London, the injury concerns are there, but if I'm moving one of those top 4, like, I'm going to move Flowers and keep the other 3. So, sorry, that last comment got me.
I do want to just quickly throw up Lonely. Millie Mills is trying to trade Kenneth Walker to make our cross league.
Look, if you can move Waddle and get Kenneth Walker, I would do that. So,
guys, that wraps up the first episode of WireTapped. We are going to be live every Tuesday at 11 o'clock moving forward. The next time we do a ton of shows on Club Fantasy, I'm not going to list the schedule. It's not interesting. However, I mean, it's an interesting schedule. It's just not interesting to hear me list the shows. I do want to let you know the next 2 times we will be live. Tonight, Women of Fantasy Football Sideline Banner, which simulcast here on the Club Fantasy channel with Sam Holt and Derek Tate, goes live at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then tomorrow night, our flagship show, no pun intended, goes live at 9 p.m. Eastern. The first episode in over a month where we get Joe Zolo back. It's going to be a great one. Folks, have a wonderful Tuesday. Get those waiver claims in. Don't waste your waiver priority. And good luck. I hope your team looks better tomorrow than it did today. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.